everyone, welcome to my channel. Today's video we're going to talk all about pumping, but more specifically pumping at work, because apparently a lot of us have to go back into the office now. For the past year and a half, I actually have been working from home, which has been so great, but I have been asked to come into the office some days. And let me tell you, the first time that they had asked me to come into the office, I was so overwhelmed with all of the things that I needed to plan and bring with me to pump at work. So I have a lot of things to share with you, and I hope this video is going to be helpful. First, we're going to go over all of the things that you need to plan before going to work. So things that you need to coordinate with your boss or your team. And then I'm also going to be sharing all of my pumping must-haves, or everything that I brought with me to work to pump. And then lastly, I'm going to be sharing my schedule as well. My daughter is 11 months old now, and her feeding schedule has changed as she's gotten older. So I'm going to be sharing with you my schedule that I've had for a long time, and then also my schedule now that she's older and not bottle feeding as much anymore. As usual, everything that I'll be mentioning on this video will be linked in the description box. So let's just get started. Let's talk about preparing for going back to work. First thing that I really needed to think about was, where am I actually going to pump? So if you have a private office where you can just close your door and pump there, that's great. But a lot of offices now have this open floor plan, which makes it hard to find a place to pump. I think employers are actually required to provide pumping moms a clean place to pump that is not the bathroom. So definitely ask your boss about that. Thankfully, my company is super family friendly. We have a quiet room that actually serves as a really great pumping room. They have a fridge, a recliner, a sink in there. So thankfully for me, it wasn't a big problem finding a place to pump at work. But I do know that not a lot of offices really have like a quiet room or a pumping room. So just something to ask your office manager or your boss if they can provide you a clean room where you can pump. So definitely something that you need to plan beforehand. Another thing is just setting expectations on your schedule. Again, I'm going to go over my actual pumping schedule later on, but I think it's always best to let your team or your boss know that you will need breaks throughout the day to pump, just so they know you're not just disappearing. And I actually had a lot of anxiety taking these breaks throughout the day to pump, but it wasn't like a break, you know. I actually hated pumping, and it's something that you just have to do. Otherwise your boobs are gonna hurt. It's also gonna hurt your supply. So definitely make sure that you stick to your schedule even when you're at work, and you set expectations that you will need those breaks. If you're like me and sometimes you have days where you just have back-to-back meetings, it might be helpful to actually block some time on your calendar, on your work calendar, for your pumping sessions. So that way that is blocked on your calendar. Nobody can set a meeting at that time. I remember there was one time where I didn't have anything on my calendar. I just had back-to-back meetings, and then I received another meeting, and I just had to decline it and say that I'm sorry, I can't have a meeting at this time. I need a break in between meetings to pump. And thankfully my coworker understood, and she was totally fine just rescheduling the meeting. But I know it can be awkward sometimes, especially if your coworkers are guys, but it's something that you just really have to do. I really don't think that's something that you should be embarrassed about, but I get it. Kind of awkward like telling my guy coworkers that I can't pick up the phone right now because I am unavailable and actually pumping. So just take your breaks, it's fine. It's something that I need to do for my baby. So those two are the main things that I really had to think about before going back to work. I just wanted to quickly mention introducing the bottle to your baby. So if you are 100% breastfeeding and then you have to bottle feed when you go back to work, I definitely recommend slowly introducing the bottle to your baby weeks before you have to bottle feed. How I did it was so wrong. I was exclusively breastfeeding, and I had tried to offer her a bottle maybe like 2 or 3 times during the 3 months that I was on maternity leave. I didn't think it was actually going to be a big problem once I started working and sending her to daycare. She would take the bottle, but she wouldn't finish her bottle because she was just wanting the boob. I literally was crying for maybe 3 days when she wasn't eating, and was convinced that I was going to resign and just stay at home with my baby. I'm actually really thankful that I didn't end up doing that, because I do enjoy my job, and it's nice having something for myself. At least that's how I see it personally. But yeah, that's just a quick tip if you are planning to bottle feed your baby when you go back to work. Slowly introduce it, start a schedule for bottle feeding, and that's just one less thing to be anxious about when you go back to work. So next, of course, is preparing what you're actually going to need to bring with you to pump to work. And I think this is actually one of the most overwhelming things, because there's a lot. There's like pump parts, and how am I going to clean my pump parts, and how am I going to transport the milk? So I'm going to share with you everything that I brought with me, all of my pumping must-haves. So obviously I had to bring my pump, and this is the pump that I use. This is the Spectra S2. It is quite bulky and big, but it's super light. I think it's 3 pounds. So it's not that bad. I do have, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the Medela portable pump. I'm gonna insert a picture of it over here. That one was okay. It was actually a lot easier to bring around, but I feel like this has a stronger pump, and I always try to make sure that I get as much milk out for each pumping session. So even if I do have that one, I still prefer this one because I feel like I always get a lot more milk out with this pump. This is hospital grade, and it also is more hygienic because it has like the backflow protection, I think is what you call it. It just helps prevent bacteria from going into your breast milk. Really love this pump, so even if it is bulky, this is what I bring with me to work. So yeah, this is the pump that I use. I also bought extra parts from Amazon that are actually not the Spectra brand. I think they're Maymom. I don't have it here with me right now, but they're from the brand Maymom. They're a lot cheaper. I feel like the quality isn't the same, but they are just my extra parts, so I didn't mind. And really why I brought extra parts with me is sometimes I will be rushing and I wouldn't have time to really clean my pump parts. If that happens, then I know that I have extra parts that are clean that I can just use for my next pumping session. I know a lot of people also don't clean their pump parts after every session, but I am just super paranoid, and that is also what the CDC recommends, but I know they're being extra careful too. If you are in a pinch and you don't have extra parts and you don't have time to clean your pump parts, I know some people also will rinse their pump parts or just wipe it with a paper towel, put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the fridge until the next session, and then you just clean your pump parts at the end of the day. I've never tried that cleaning process, but I know a lot of moms do that, so that might be something that would work for you. So for storing my milk, I actually have these extra storage bottles that I got from Medela, and these are the ones that actually hook up to that portable pump that I was talking about. And I bought like a pack of 6 of these because I thought that was a pump that I was going to be using more, but I ended up loving the Spectra more. I do regret not just getting more of these bottles and using this as storage. That way I didn't have to transfer bottles, but this is what I have, and honestly it wasn't that big of a hassle to move them here. So after I would pump, I would either store my milk on these bottles or breast milk bags. So I've tried the Lansino and the Target 1UP breast milk bags. I think both of those worked great for me. I don't have them right now because this is just where I have been storing them, because recently I have been pumping for what my daughter will be drinking the next day, so I would just leave these in the fridge. But in the beginning I actually was building a freezer stash, so that's why I had those milk storage bags, because I'm able to freeze those and it doesn't take up that much space in my freezer. I also have these labels for all of Sienna's bottles and really all of her stuff that I have to bring with her to daycare, and these are dishwasher safe. I got these from Etsy and they're so cute. They come in different colors and different styles. I'm gonna link the Etsy shop where I bought this from down in the description box. I have washed these bottles so many times on the dishwasher and also hand wash, and they've held up pretty well. The shop also has some labels for clothing that you can put on the tags of your baby's clothes if you're sending extra clothes with them to daycare. But yeah, just a quick recommendation if you are sending your babies to daycare. Now I also have this pumping bag, and this is where I put absolutely everything. I just got this one from Amazon. It's nothing special. As you can see, it's basically like a big insulated lunchbox. I already had a really nice work tote. I have one from Dagny Dover. I bought that just before the pandemic started, so I wasn't interested at all in like getting another work bag because I barely use that one. I know that you can buy work totes that can fit your laptop and also your pump parts, but for me I wanted one that's separate just for all of my pump parts. It's basically like a big lunchbox, but I like that it's insulated, and again it can fit this big Spectra pump perfectly. And then I have another space in here for the parts and also all of the milk. On this little pocket here, I have some paper towels and also some Ziploc bags, just in case I ever wanted to try that process of wiping your pump parts and putting them in the fridge. But again, I've never tried that. I do use these Ziploc bags for like dirty pump parts that I haven't cleaned, and if I would just end up using my extra pump parts. So I always just have these handy, and then I would just put all of the pump parts in here. Now I also have another little bag in here. This is actually a lunchbox that I got years ago from a FabFitFun box. This is a Kate Spade lunchbox, and this is where I would store all of my milk. This lunchbox just fits these Medela bottles perfectly, and so I would just put them here, and then I would leave this in our office fridge. So I'm not just leaving my milk out for everyone to see. This also fits perfectly in my work tote, so I would just put this in my work tote when I'm ready to go home. Since this lunchbox is insulated and it does come with an ice pack, you can just use this to store your milk as well. But because I had extra parts, and I'm also going to be showing you some other stuff that I bring with me, I just used this section for that stuff and have a separate bag for my milk. Now, another thing that I would bring with me is my pumping bra. I have 2 of these. These ones I just got from Amazon. These actually came with straps that I just never put on because I actually really like that it's just something that you can wrap around and wear whenever you need to pump. I would just put this in my pumping bag and then put it on when I need to pump that, and then I'll attach the pump parts here, and that way I can have my hands free and I can either work, be on my phone or something while I'm pumping. These pumping bras are so helpful. Honestly, I don't know how I would have survived without these. If I didn't have a pumping bra, can you imagine? I would just be holding these things for like 20 minutes or however long I need to pump. That's too much. Like 20 minutes, I could be doing something else, you know? So I definitely recommend these ones. These are from Amazon and honestly a lot cheaper than a lot of pumping bras out there. Another thing that I bring with me that I highly recommend is this OXO travel brush. I also mentioned this in my newborn essentials video because honestly this is one of the best purchases ever because it's just been so helpful. You're probably like, why is she so passionate about a travel brush? But I'm just saying this has been so helpful. You open it up and it's actually a drying rack already. It has this little brush that's actually super helpful for bottle nipples or all of the little corners of your pump parts, and then this big brush, and then you just attach this and now you have a full-size brush, and then it also has a stand and a drying rack. I mean, I think this is pretty genius. Highly recommend this even if you are not planning to clean your pump parts at work. Just grab this for like portability if you ever needed to travel. Another thing to maybe think about when you're planning to clean your pump parts at work is soap. I know a lot of moms actually use baby specific dish soap. I personally didn't feel the need to do that. I was totally fine just using the dish soap that we had in our office, but I know some people might not be comfortable with that. So just something to add to your checklist. Another thing that was super helpful for me when I was pumping at work was the Huckleberry app. I've used the Huckleberry app ever since Sienna was born. This is where I track all of her feedings, diaper changes, sleep, and when I started pumping, this is also where I track how many ounces I pumped per session, and also it was super helpful for reminding me when I need to pump. Then when you have those back-to-back meetings, if you have really busy days, I find that it's easy to forget a pumping session, and having like some sort of alarm on your phone is super helpful. So yeah, you can just set like an alarm on your phone, but what I like about the Huckleberry app is I can also track how many ounces I pump per session and then compare that to how many ounces my daughter was eating. I did that for a long time. I don't do that anymore, but if you are planning on doing that, I highly recommend the Huckleberry app. Another thing that you always need to have with you is water. I surprisingly don't have my big Yeti tumbler, which is usually always right next to me, and I don't really feel like going around the house and looking for it right now, but I always have that with me, especially in the office. It's super important to stay hydrated, especially when you're nursing or you're pumping, so definitely make sure that you always have a big sort of tumbler with you. It doesn't have to be the Yeti tumbler, but just bring like a jug of water with you when you're going to work. That way you don't forget to stay hydrated throughout the day. All right, that is all for my pumping must-haves. Now let's talk about my pumping schedule. In the beginning, when Sienna was older, my schedule was really to pump whenever she was feeding. So whenever she would take a bottle, I would make sure that I pumped at the same time. So this is what my schedule looked like. I would usually breastfeed first thing in the morning, and then when she gets to daycare, she would have another bottle. So she would have 4 bottles while I was at work, and that means that I would need to pump 4 times as well while I was at work. And then when she gets home, then I would breastfeed her again. Now, pumping 4 times a day might not seem like a lot, but let me tell you, that's a lot. Pumping is so tiring, especially since, again, I'm that type of person who likes to clean my pump parts after every session. It was exhausting. So eventually I started introducing formula to my baby. She would get 1 bottle of formula a day. That way I only had to pump 3 times a day. Now, as she's gotten older, my pumping schedule has changed as well because we're actually trying to feed her more solid food now, especially because she is going to be 1 in a few weeks, which is insane. So I went from pumping 4 times a day to 3 times a day, and now only 2 times a day, 1 in the morning and then 1 in the afternoon. In the beginning, each pumping session also lasted 20 minutes, but I also went down to just 15 minutes, which let me tell you, I don't think 20 versus 15 minutes was that big of a difference. I feel like I still got the same amount, which like I should have just been doing like 15 minutes all this time. But that is everything that I wanted to share with you on today's video. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions or if you feel like I missed anything, please don't hesitate to leave a comment or DM me on Instagram. I do respond to DMs there, so I would love to connect with you. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.